They appeared to be everything young love could promise: carefree, passionate, and endlessly curious about the world. Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie, a couple whose journey seemed pulled from the pages of a romantic travel blog. Their days were filled with road trip playlists, national parks, scenic hikes, and selfies beneath golden sunsets. Every shared post crafted a picture-perfect life, a dreamscape of freedom and affection in the great American outdoors. But then, the updates stopped. The once vibrant feed went quiet. No new vlogs. No smiling snapshots. No location tags from wildflower meadows or desert cliffs. And in that deafening digital silence, the world began to whisper. Something wasn't right. What began as an adventure soon twisted into a haunting mystery, one the entire world would watch unfold in real time. Across every timeline and headline, the story of Gabby's disappearance crept forward, each detail darker than the last. This isn't merely the tale of a tragic ending. This is a story about perception, how carefully crafted images can obscure the truth. It is the unraveling of a love story that never truly was, played out against the backdrop of likes, follows, and filtered facades. And it is a reminder, sometimes, the most dangerous stories are the ones hiding behind smiles. It was the summer of 2021, a time when the world was just beginning to breathe again after lockdowns, restrictions, and isolation. For many, it was a season of renewal. For Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie, it was the beginning of what they imagined would be the journey of a lifetime. Two young dreamers, trading in routine for the open road, embarking on a cross-country van life adventure that promised freedom, connection, and discovery. They converted a white Ford Transit van into a tiny mobile home, minimalist, cozy, Instagram-ready. It was their shared sanctuary on wheels. Their days were documented in snapshots of canyons and coastlines, national parks, and roadside diners. With every post, they invited the world to be part of their adventure. Their phone wasn't just a tool, it became their confessional, their canvas, and their proof of happiness. But what social media didn't show, the moments between the frames, was a different kind of journey unfolding. One not marked by miles, but by emotional landmines. While followers double-tapped on breathtaking views and heart emojis, cracks were quietly forming beneath the surface. Small moments of strain. Flashes of control. A tension that began to simmer. And then, silence. Gabby disappeared. Vanished. As confusion gave way to concern, and concern to panic, the nation turned its eyes to this story with bated breath. Millions scrolled through her past, searching for clues buried in plain sight. It wasn't just a missing persons case, it became a phenomenon, one that unraveled across TikTok timelines, live streams, and nightly news. But we're not here just to recount events. We're here to understand them. This video will peel back the curated layers to reveal what they hid, the emotional undercurrents of coercive control, the red flags embedded in body language and behavior, and the disturbing ease with which illusion replaced reality. This isn't merely the story of a tragic loss. It's a cautionary tale, a mirror reflecting our modern relationship with love, control, and the dangerous performance of perfection. A case study in how digital fairy tales can disguise real-world horror. And in the spaces between the posts, the truth was always there. Gabby Petito was just 22 years old, a young woman with a heart full of ambition and a spirit built for adventure. She radiated warmth, with a smile that seemed to light up every frame and a contagious enthusiasm for life on the road. Gabby had a dream, and she chased it with fearless sincerity, to become a travel influencer, to turn wanderlust into purpose, and to share her journey with the world. Brian Laundrie, 23, was her fiancé. He was known for his creativity, often sketching, reading, immersing himself in nature. Some who knew him called him quiet, artistic, even thoughtful. But others described something more troubling beneath the surface. He could be moody, unpredictable. He preferred control over compromise. Where Gabby's light filled rooms, Brian's presence sometimes dimmed it. Still, they seemed devoted. At least, that's what the internet saw. In July 2021, the couple set out in their converted van to document the iconic van life journey across America. National parks, wide-open highways, starry nights, every post was crafted to fit the digital dream. Their social media presence grew quickly, attracting followers who admired the freedom and intimacy of two young souls living untethered. But not everything added up. Some followers began noticing subtle shifts. Gabby's once effervescent captions grew shorter, more reserved. Her once radiant expression began to look forced, strained. There were fewer candid laughs, more composed smiles. Her body seemed tense, her eyes a little less certain. It was like watching a painting slowly lose color, frame by frame. What the world saw was a curated reality. But behind the lens, there were growing shadows. Tensions that no filter could hide forever. Moments that never made it to the feed. The signs were there, but buried beneath aesthetics, drowned out by hashtags and hearts. And in hindsight, each post became something darker, not a memory, but a missed warning. August 12, 2021, Moab, Utah. A concerned bystander made a call to 911. They'd witnessed something alarming, a man striking a woman in a van parked near the Moonflower Co-op. Moments later, police located the vehicle and initiated a traffic stop. What followed was a brief, chilling window into the dynamics of a deeply imbalanced relationship. Gabby was shaken. Her voice trembled, her movements restless. She fidgeted with her hands, struggled to find her words. She cried. She apologized, repeatedly. Her distress wasn't just emotional, it was physical. Her entire body spoke the language of someone overwhelmed, someone shrinking under invisible pressure. Brian, on the other hand, was eerily composed. His demeanor was calm, even affable. He laughed with officers. He joked. He told a version of events that cast Gabby as unstable, emotional, the one who needed help. The officers, perhaps unintentionally, leaned into that narrative. They framed the incident as a mental health episode, not a domestic violence case. Their solution? Separate the couple for the night and move on. But under that exchange lay a minefield of psychological red flags. Gabby, in classic gaslighting scenarios, took responsibility for everything. She said it was her fault. That she hit Brian. That she was just stressed. She minimized her pain to protect him. She distorted her own reality to match his. That's what gaslighting does. It makes the victim doubt their own truth, their own memory, their own worth. Meanwhile, Brian masterfully deployed minimization tactics. He spoke softly. He painted the argument as a minor lover's quarrel. He maintained just enough charm to appear rational, measured, harmless. This is how abusers often evade scrutiny, by performing control as calmness, by weaponizing charm as a shield. The officers, unaware or untrained in the nuances of psychological abuse, missed it. The imbalance was right there in the open, but it wasn't loud. It didn't bruise the skin, it bruised the spirit. This wasn't just a missed opportunity. It was a turning point. In that moment, Gabby's pain was translated into something palatable. Her cries were reframed as anxiety. Brian's control was dressed in politeness. The story that should have raised alarms was filed away under misunderstanding. But those subtle power dynamics, they don't stay subtle for long. And in Gabby's case, they would prove fatal. After August 25th, everything fell quiet. No more smiling selfies. No dreamy captions about sunrise hikes or sleeping under the stars. Gabby Petito, who had once documented nearly every moment of her cross-country adventure, disappeared from the digital world. And with her, so did the illusion of safety. The silence was deafening. Her family grew anxious. Messages went unanswered. Calls went straight to voicemail. They clung to hope, refreshing her social media, waiting for a ping, a post, a sign that she was okay. Then came the twist no one could prepare for. Brian Laundrie returned home to Florida. Alone. He parked the same van the couple had shared and walked back into his parents' house like nothing had happened. No public statement. No private explanation. Just an unnerving calmness that unsettled everyone paying attention. 10 days passed. 10 unbearable days where Gabby's family begged for answers that never came. They pleaded with the Laundries, Brian's family, for any information. But the door remained closed. Silent. Shielded by lawyers. The public watched in horror as the story gained traction. Social media turned into a digital crime scene. Hashtags surged. Amateur sleuths combed through videos, timelines, geotags. Everyone asked the same question: where is Gabby? And then came the confirmation no one wanted. On September 19, 2021, Gabby's remains were discovered in a remote area of the Bridger-Teton National Forest in Wyoming. A place she had once described as breathtaking. A place she had loved. Now, it was where her life had ended. The cause of death: strangulation. A brutal, intimate form of violence. One that speaks to rage, control, and the terrifying final moments of a victim's life. She was left alone in the very wilderness that had once been her escape. Abandoned in silence. And in that moment, the story shifted from a mystery to a tragedy. From a hopeful search to a chilling reckoning with how quickly a life can be taken, and how slowly the truth can emerge. As the investigation deepened, one voice remained conspicuously absent: Brian Laundrie's. He refused to speak with investigators. Refused to address Gabby's family. Refused to offer the most basic answer to the question the entire world was asking: what happened to her? Instead, he hired a lawyer. From that moment on, any hope of a cooperative resolution vanished. And soon, so did he. Brian Laundrie walked out of his parents' Florida home and was never seen alive again. What followed was a surreal chapter in the story, one that played out in real time, in comments, in live streams, in viral theories. Reporters camped outside the Laundrie house, cameras constantly rolling. Protesters shouted for justice. TikTok and YouTube lit up with amateur investigators decoding timelines, satellite images, even analyzing body language from old footage. The internet became a hive of speculation and obsession. Days passed. Then weeks. Where was Brian? Theories ranged from the plausible to the absurd. Was he hiding in the swamps? On the run in Mexico? Helped by his family? Every rumor carried with it hope and horror in equal measure. And then, October 20th. Deep inside Florida's Carlton Reserve, in an area previously submerged by floodwaters, authorities found skeletal remains. Alongside them, a dry bag, personal items, and a notebook. Dental records confirmed it: Brian Laundrie was dead. A self-inflicted gunshot wound. In his final act, he had gone into the wild alone and ended his life. Inside that weathered notebook, stained by water and time, was the truth the world had waited for. A confession. He admitted to killing Gabby. Claimed it was out of mercy. Said she was injured. Said he panicked. And then, in the same breath, claimed he couldn't go on. But even in his final words, there was no justice. Only justification. No real remorse. Just echoes of the control and manipulation that had defined their relationship from the beginning. It was an ending, but not a resolution. Because nothing in that notebook could ever undo what had been done. So what drives someone like Brian Laundrie to commit such an unfathomable act? What flips the switch from troubled partner to killer? To understand that, we have to dig deeper, not just into the crime itself, but into the psychology behind it. Experts in criminal behavior and forensic psychology point to a cocktail of dangerous traits: narcissistic tendencies, entitlement, and a need for control disguised as love. Individuals like Brian often present as sensitive or misunderstood on the surface, but underneath, there's a darker architecture of thought. They feel owed attention, owed obedience, owed loyalty without limits. And when the person they claim to love doesn't conform to those unspoken demands, that's when the mask slips. But this wasn't some impulsive crime of passion. It wasn't a sudden, isolated moment of rage. This was slow, insidious, a methodical erosion of another person's sense of autonomy. Brian, by multiple accounts, isolated Gabby both emotionally and physically. As their road trip continued, he tightened control over where they went, what they did, and how things unfolded. He reportedly dismissed her needs, challenged her choices, and gaslit her emotions until she couldn't tell whether the problem was him or her. He shaped the entire journey to orbit around his moods, his preferences, his sense of order. And Gabby, eager to keep the peace, to preserve the relationship she'd built her dreams on, began to shrink herself to fit his world. In psychological terms, this is coercive control, a subtle, sustained pattern of domination that doesn't always leave bruises but always leaves scars. It thrives in secrecy, in silence. And in Gabby's case, it unfolded on the road, far from home, far from help, far from witnesses. To Brian, Gabby became less of a partner and more of a reflection, a mirror for his inner chaos. When things didn't go his way, when she resisted or cried or challenged him, it wasn't seen as a cry for help. It was seen as defiance. And for someone already unmoored by entitlement and insecurity, that defiance felt like betrayal. Gabby wasn't just the victim of a violent moment, she was the victim of emotional corrosion that wore down her light, 1 mile, 1 post, 1 argument at a time. And by the time the rest of the world realized it, it was too late. Gabby Petito's death didn't just echo within the walls of her grieving family's home, it reverberated across a nation, across timelines, across millions of hearts that had never met her, but felt her loss like a sudden wound. Her story wasn't quietly buried in police files or pushed into a forgotten corner of the news cycle. It exploded. Her name became more than a headline. It became a symbol. Gabby represented countless women, far too many, who suffer in silence. Who smile through the fear. Who post happy photos while enduring quiet torment behind closed doors. In the days and weeks following her death, social media transformed from a source of illusion into a platform of truth-telling. Women around the world began sharing their stories. Stories of emotional manipulation, of controlling partners, of gaslighting that left them questioning their reality. Survivors came forward with bruises that weren't always visible, trauma that was buried beneath years of being told they were too sensitive, too dramatic, or too much. Gabby's case cracked open long overdue conversations about the signs of abuse that aren't always physical. About the biases in how missing persons cases are covered, especially when it comes to race, gender, and media attention. About how society is still conditioned to believe the calm man over the crying woman. About how easy it is to miss the warning signs when they're dressed in matching outfits and road trip playlists. And perhaps most unsettling of all, her case revealed how the curated version of life online, the one filtered through hashtags and story highlights, can become a hiding place for pain. A digital smokescreen where the world sees happiness, while behind the scenes, someone is unraveling. Gabby Petito, even in death, forced the world to stop scrolling and start noticing. To question what we assume, and to examine the cost of the stories we believe. Because behind every vanished post, might be a voice we didn't hear in time. Gabby Petito's story didn't end in Wyoming. It didn't end with headlines. And it didn't end with the discovery of a notebook and a confession. It lives on. It lives in conversations whispered between friends who now recognize the signs. In classrooms where young people are learning what real love should feel like. In social media posts where survivors, emboldened by Gabby's story, finally speak their truth. Her life, and the way it was stolen, forced us to confront the uncomfortable. It asked us to look at what we so often overlook. That love should never come at the cost of your voice, your freedom, or your safety. That silence, especially in the face of manipulation, is not peace, it's erasure. And that the image of a perfect life online may be hiding something far more dangerous offline. If Gabby's story teaches us anything, it's this. Love is not control. Compliance is not consent. And silence is not safety. Every photo we scroll past, every couple we idolize, every smiling selfie, we now know to look deeper. To listen harder. To question what we assume and see the world with more compassion, more curiosity, more care. And if even one person is helped by this awareness, then her voice wasn't lost. It was amplified. So if you believe stories like Gabby's deserve to be told, not with sensationalism, but with sensitivity and psychological insight, we invite you to be part of this community. Subscribe. Here, we uncover what lies beneath the surface. We give space to victims, not just criminals. We tell the stories that matter with care, with depth, and with truth. Because in a world flooded with noise, justice begins with the one thing we can all choose: awareness.